Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We're resuming our session now. This is the last session, and there's a drastic shift of topic. We're going to discuss some women issues and particularly some important questions that have confused our minds or even made them dissatisfied regarding certain interpretations. So I'll start off by actually coming to a few things which are proclaimed amongst Muslims as a very common phenomena and a very common interpretation. And I can call them as top 3 or 4 or maybe 5 misconceptions regarding women amongst Muslims. And because of the fact that these misconceptions are very pervasive and you'll find them being discussed almost everywhere. So the topmost misconception that I come across regarding women, wherever I go, I think I can easily say that it by far leaves behind all the rest of those misconceptions regarding women, is the issue of child marriage. Marrying young underage girls, and the reason that is given is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself actually married Aisha, anha, his wife, who was about 6 or 9 years old, was a very tender age. She was a girl, I mean, by no means a woman. And people say that, well, because the Prophet Muhammad married an underage child, or underage bride, I would say, so therefore marrying them is, and they go as far as to say that it's a sunnah. And I have seen many scholars even marrying young girls with this notion that they are actually reviving a sunnah of the Prophet. And besides the fact that it is totally mind-boggling and it is, I mean, against total common sense, I can tell you that because of the fact that this incident of the Prophet marrying Aisha anha at this tender age has been mentioned in Bukhari. And most of you would be knowing that Sahih Bukhari is a book which was compiled by Imam Bukhari. And generally our notion regarding Bukhari is that anything which comes or is recorded by Imam Bukhari in this Jami' al-Sahih, which is the name of his book, has to be true, it cannot be disregarded. So I'm just going to bring up some counter information for your perusal. And this counter information is totally opposite to what Imam Bukhari has actually recorded when he says that she was 6 or 9 years old. And what I'm just going to present before you is also a small mathematical calculation, and I'm not the first one to disclose it to you. Hakim Niaz Ahmed, who was a graduate of Deoband, or he lived about, let's say, close to 100 years ago. It was for the first time that he brought this information to light, to my knowledge. And after him, there have been other voices, there have been other people as well who have taken up his research and corroborated it to a very, very solid extent. So, other than the fact that one of the principles of understanding Hadith literature, which all our Muhaddisun, the Hadith scholars, they subscribe to, is that anything which is against common sense and common happening cannot be accepted. And I think this is one of those things which is against, not only against common sense, because look what had actually happened, that he had lost Khadija anha, and he was looking for someone as a companion and someone who could take care of his children. And it's simply out of proportion that he could have married another child, and his own children were probably more older to Aisha, some of them. So not only is this against common sense and experience, I am now going to present before you some historical evidence, historical information that totally uproots this concept from its base. And as I said, for the first time, this was presented by Hakim Niaz Ahmed, a very famous Indian scholar from Deoband. And after him, you might have heard of a person like Habibur Rahman Kandalwi, again a scholar who took up this this information as well. So in all our history books, what you'll find is that Aisha and Asma, they are 2 sisters. Both are the daughters of Abu Bakr. This is common history. I mean, everyone who knows history knows that Abu Bakr, I mean, he might be having other daughters, but the famous ones were Aisha and Asma, and all our history books say that Asma, she was 10 years older to Aisha. This is again something which is, I mean, found in every single history book. You look up the biographies of our mothers of the faithfuls, pick up any book, and you'll find that this is what they say, that Asma was 10 years older to Aisha. So she is the elder sister, Aisha is the younger sister. The second bit of information which all our history books tell us was that Asma died in 73 Hijrah, and she was given a lot of years by God, and at the ripe age of 100 years. Okay, now there's a third fact also, which our history books mention, and that is that Aisha actually came to the Prophet's house, I mean, which we call the Rukhsati, because you know, her nikah had taken place in Makkah. I mean, the Prophet's wife Khadija had died in Makkah, and after her death, 2 years, almost 2 years or 1 year before Hijrah, the nikah took place, but the Rukhsati did not take place. So Aisha was still at home. She was at her father's house. And then there's a fourth fact, that Rukhsati took place in around 3 Hijrah. She departed to the Prophet's house. So all these facts are established facts. You just pick up any history book, you'll find them to be stated. So Hakim Niaz Ahmed was the person who actually brought them to light for the first time. Now there's a simple conclusion that you can draw. These are just 4 facts, and by just understanding and collating the information of these 4 facts, look what result we come to. If Asma died in the 73rd year of migration and she was 100 years, what would be her age at migration? 27. Okay, so that would mean that at 0 Hijrah, when the migration was taking place, Asma was 27. This is 0 Hijrah. So what would be the age of Aisha?
17.
Okay, so Aisha was 10 years younger, remember? At 0 Hijrah. She would be 17. And she departed 3 years after Hijrah to the Prophet's house. So she was 20 years old. There's not a chance that she was 6 or 5 or 9 years old. This is simple mathematical calculation which actually was put forth by Hakim Niaz Ahmed for the first time. It had always existed in our history books. I mean, this was always there. It was just a question of someone pointing it out that not only it is against common sense, experience, and the Prophet's own nature that he would have done so, it is belied by our history books as well. That by a simple mathematical calculation of the ages given, and remind you when I stated these facts, I mean, you can just Google them, go back home, or look at some Islamic history books who give you this information, that this is how, I mean, I can tell you that there is a discrepancy. For example, some would say this is 2 Hijrah, and some would say that this is -2, or very close to the Hijrah. I mean, there is this small variation here, but that doesn't make much of a difference. It would either make her 19 or 21. So if there is a discrepancy, it is in the time of nikah and in the departure. Because you see, the Meccan history is not very accurately stated. That was a time in which, I mean, things were still not very not very crystal, they were very fluid. So this is how you will find this information being set out in our history books, and I think that this is something that is undeniable when some information of this sort comes to you. So I think that this claim of child marriage or the Prophet marrying a child or a girl, I think it's something which Imam Bukhari, maybe he made an error. And again, there are people who have said that the reason for this error is also very plausible. It is plausible. It could be something that we can also gauge, that what made him maybe make this error. So here is another probable situation that had arisen. So you see, in Arabic, in English, for example, when I write 19, I write like this. And 19 is one word. When I say 18, 18 is one word. So in Arabic, when I say 19, I say tis'ata ashar. Look at the word 19. So in English, I'll call it 19. It's a single word. But in Arabic, it will be written like this. Tis'a ashar. Okay, when I have to write 18, I would say samaniya ashar, which means that the numerals are actually stated differently. And in the English language, I'll use one word. I'll not say 19, I'll say 19. I'll not say 18, I'll say 18. But in Arabic, the words are written such that the units and the tens, they are written separately. Tis'a ashar means 9 and 10. Samani ashar means 8 and 10. So 9 and 10 is actually 19. 8 and 10 is actually 18. So this has happened in our hadith books, in our literature books, in which at times the narrators, they tend to drop certain words, making them either think that they are understood or because of a simple error. So some of the people have actually made this analogy that what has happened is that Imam Bukhari had also written Tis'a Ashara or maybe Samani Ashara. What happened was that this word Ashara got dropped and what remained was just Tis'a, and Tis'a means actually 9 and Samaniya means 8. So it does happen in hadith literature that the narrators at times, they tend to drop certain numerals either if they are very well understood or if there is, it could be an error as well. So I'm not saying that this is precisely what happened. But what I'm saying is this could have happened. This could have happened that even if you think that Imam Bukhari could have made this, then perhaps he had actually written 19, which is Tis'at Ashar. The word Ashar got dropped. Ashar means 10. Tisa means 9. So because 10 is the unit and Tisa is one that comes after the unit, so we say 19 is Tis'a Ashara. So in all probability, if Imam Bukhari had also written 9, it probably was not 9, it was 19. And the word Ashara, either because of being understood or because of the fact that the narrators do make this error that at times they do drop these numerals. So this could also be a plausible explanation to this fact. But nevertheless, whether this is or not, that is not, something which is of our concern. The real concern is the data that we have, which I just presented before you, and which I think goes very far in sort of negating the fact that she was 7 or 9 or 8 years old at the time of her departure. So this is as far as her age is concerned. And before I move on to the next topic, if there are any questions.
Why is there any proof that why her age is talked about in history like Sahih Bukhari and is keep like till today? None of other.
Because she was the one who were married who was underage. The rest were married in their prime ages. The rest of them were 21, 30, 45, etc. But about her, she is the sole wife about which there is a specification that she was 6 years old. So that is why it has become a big issue.
I've also read someplace that she was engaged to a gentleman from
Yeah,
that name.
that's another.
And Abu Bakr,
Yeah.
his parents found out that Abu Bakr Siddiq
That's it.
was converted to Islam.
Yes, Mutaim bin Adi, his son, he was engaged to her, and obviously she couldn't have been engaged at the age of 6 because this was not what they would do. Because she said, "I'm going to go and find out whether they are ready to get her married or not." So another thing that I'd like to explain is that Hakim Niaz actually presented 5 or 6 or 7 arguments in favor of the fact that she was not 6 years old. I have just presented the most stark of them, the most, I would say, one that cannot be negated because it's sort of a mathematical argument. Otherwise, he has come up with some other arguments. For example, one of the arguments that he has given is that the word which is used for Aisha by Mutaim bin Adi, the Arabic word, which actually translated into English means woman. It cannot be translated as girl. And so we see they have a different word in Arabic for girl and a different word for woman, and they cannot be interchanged. So the word which has been used by Aisha, by him, when he said that I'll go and find out whether she's still married, she's still engaged or not, and they're interested in getting her married or not, is he's used this word which we use for a woman and not for a girl. So what I'm trying to say is that if you can have the time, it's a book which is available on the internet. Formerly it had just been lifted from the internet, but now I think it's back. If you Google his name, and the Urdu name of the book is Tehqiq Umr Aisha. and you write his name, you'll get, you get details. Yes.
So has this always been an issue, or is it just recent times?
It has been, in the last 50 years, it has been brought up by people who have criticized Islam a lot. And because of the fact that child marriage is now proscribed in a very heavy way, and because Muslims, they tend to negate child marriages, and they say that the Prophet married a child and they are also authorized. So child marriage as an issue has been highlighted because of a human right issue. And you know that human rights is something which has just come up in the last 50 or 60 years as people are gaining more awareness. So formerly it was there, but I think it was talked about in individual sort of areas. But today, this is wherever I've gone, I think this is the most commonly discussed issue. The biggest objection, even greater than jihad, I would say, that people raise on the Prophet's personality.
I feel like this is like part of a character assassination attempt for the Prophet, like if he was a warlord, underage marriage. Is it part of the package?
Well, I think that my own approach would be that why should we determine the intention of someone? I think what the face value of something is that, I myself would be really shocked if this was the case. So I think that instead of thinking that it's character assassination, it would have raised the same question in my mind, to be frank. If I had not been, if I stopped viewing myself as a Aqidatmand Muslim, as a revered person who's revering certain facts, I would also perhaps have the same question, that why did a 6-year-old girl get married to him when the children he already had were older than her. Khadija left 6 or 7 children when she died, and they were older than her. So it doesn't make sense.
Because I think it's a missing piece from ulama, because at the same time, Prophet married with Hazrat Sauda.
Yes.
She was older.
And she was 53 years old.
Yeah.
And in fact, the person who was told to communicate between the two, since she was first went to Sauda herself. Aisha, for the first, she said that she had a younger person in mind and she had an older person in mind. And the yes came from both at the same time. And so he couldn't have denied either of them. That's another situation in which how he got married, that's another tale. But to my mind, actually, the more important thing is that the age that he got married was, she was a mature lady of 20, 21 years of age. And someone can even then say that, well, the Prophet was 54, and why did he go and marry a 20-year-old girl? But I think that's another question, Ben. And in that culture, this age difference of 25 years or 30 years was not as, as objectionable. It was in fact quite common, I would say, in certain tribes as well. But marrying an underage girl is certainly something which is bothersome, if it happened.
What about these other numbers? You said that they're established in our history books. Still, are they? How do we determine that they're actually accurate?
Because they have been corroborated by multiple books. It's not just one book mentioning that she died in this. You see, the sources of history, when you study history, the more multiple they are, the more the chance of that thing being probable. If the same fact is being reported by 4 or 5 or 3 or 2 people, because at that time, this is how history had been written. So, as I said, this is some corroboratory evidence. Otherwise, to my mind, the primary objection is that this is absolutely against common sense. And because of the fact that Bukhari has recorded it, is no reason enough to start believing it. That is the primary, I would say, and what our scholars call the daraya. Daraya means the text is flawed itself. And the text, our scholars themselves say that anything which is against common sense, against established history, cannot be accepted. So this is a further sort of a thing, which is strengthening that common sense notion.
But since they do believe in it, and they have made the Bukhari or other books of hadith as holy or divine, basically, they've raised it to that level. They've also raised anything the Prophet ﷺ did as holy and divine, and to that level. So that's why it gets accepted more easily in the minds of people.
Oh yes, that is why I said that there are scholars who start marrying these young girls, and they think that they are reviving the sunnah of the Prophet.